Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I read a lot of books. It's the bookshelf behind me. I've read another book. This one is called Who We Were Before and it's by Leah Mercer. There's your front cover. This was kind of a sad book at times, bittersweet. Let's just get straight in with that blurb. Zoe knows that it wasn't really her fault. Of course it wasn't. But if she just grasped harder, ran faster, lunged quicker, she might have saved him. And Edward doesn't really blame her, though his bitter words at the time still haunt her, and he can no more take them back than she can hold the car that killed their son. 2 years on every day is a tragedy. Edward knows they should take healing steps together, but he's tired of being shut out. For Zoe, it just seems easier to let grief lead the way. A weekend in Paris might be their last hope for reconciliation, but mischance sees them separated before they've even left Gare-du-Nord. Lost and alone, Edward and Zoe must try to find their way back to each other and find their way back to the people they were before. But is that even possible? So this book is 268 pages. I read this on the Kindle app from Amazon. It's in women's popular fiction, psychological fiction, and women's psychological. It's kind of got your romance in there as well, because it's set over 2 days in the present, where they've arrived in Paris. They arrived at the train station, and they're supposed to be having a weekend away in Paris. And throughout the book, you get flashbacks to who they were before, so when they first met, how their relationship developed, and their relationship through their marriage, the birth of their son, and the death of their son. So if anybody has experienced that kind of loss, in like the loss of a child, this might be quite a difficult book to read. As somebody in my family, we've gone through the loss of a child, and so this really tugged at my heartstrings when you see them talking about their son, and you're getting little bits throughout the book of what happened, and it's only in like the last quarter of the book you find out actually what happened to their son and how he died. And it is truly heartbreaking, especially because you realise that knowing the different places they were in their relationship, and when they first met, it was a case of Zoe wasn't really in a place of commitment. It's not that she doesn't believe in marriage, it's just that she doesn't quite think that it's for her, whereas Edward knows that he wants to get married and have children. So when it comes to the proposal, they break up briefly, because Zoe doesn't think that she's ready for marriage, and they both feel like they're in different places. Zoe would have been very happy to continue the relationship, just not engaged and married. She just wanted to be at that place with him at a point where she's just like, I still love you, I'm just not ready for marriage yet. It doesn't feel like the path that I'm on. So it is really heartbreaking at that moment when they do split before they get back together again, because obviously they're on a weekend away married, so you know that they eventually get back together again. But that moment when Edward proposes to her and she's there going, I don't think I'm ready for that, can we just stay where we are? And Edward is there going, well, I wanted to move forward, and so we're obviously on two different planes here, so it seems inevitable that we should break up because we're not on the same path here. And then they both kind of have moments away from each other, but it seems like the world keeps pulling them back together, and they run into each other, and both of them are still in love with each other. And Zoe goes, you know what, I've realised that I cannot live without you, and it's made me realise that I do want to get married to you. And yeah, I think a lot of looking at this relationship, it's a lot of miscommunication or no communication. There's points when Edward doesn't really talk to Zoe, there's points when Zoe doesn't really talk to Edward, so it seems from the very beginning they were kind of on slightly different paths. But even when they get together, and a big plot point of this story is the fact that Edward didn't think he was able to have children, because he was told after he had mumps as a child that it would affect his fertility, and so he goes through the majority of the book, or I say majority of the book because obviously you've got the present day as well, but when you're looking at what happened before, you see Edward spending a lot of time not thinking that he could have children. So when they're broken up, and he finds out through a friend of Zoe's that she's pregnant. He's convinced that she's pregnant by somebody else. And so when it comes out that yes, she is pregnant and that it is Edward's son, Edward is at first quite angry because he's there thinking, well, why didn't you tell me? There is a bit of a conversation as you go through the flashbacks where at first Zoe doesn't admit that it's his, because mainly she partly feels betrayed from her friend who went behind her back to tell Edward that she was pregnant, and because she thinks that he's moved on without her because she saw him out with somebody else, she just lies to him when he arrives at the apartment and says, no, it's not yours. She just lies straight to his face. So there's lots of conversations throughout the book where it just feels like they're lying to each other or misleading each other, and you're there wondering if this is a relationship worth saving in the present, because you realise that when they do get to Paris at the beginning of the book, neither of them are happy. Edward has developed some feelings for a co-worker, but he'll never admit it to himself. And Zoe is still, well, to be fair, they're both still grieving. They're both still grieving the death of their son. And you find out more about how that grief is affecting them throughout the book in regards to what else was happening around that time, why Zoe feels so guilty, because as I said, it's not until like the last quarter of the book you find out actually what happened to their son and how he passed away. And yeah, so you go through the book going, is this like kind of a will they, won't they type situation? You kind of want them to fix their relationship, but at the same time you're just like, at this point, is it worth saving? Did their relationship die with the death of their son? Yeah, that's why I say it's sad, it's heartbreaking. As somebody who has gone through that type of grief before, it was hard to read at times. You know, I think as anybody else who has dealt with the loss of a child or even a baby, which was, in my case, in the book, it's a toddler. I think it's like 3 or 4 in the book. And let's just look at what happens in the flashbacks. In the present day, they get separated at the train station in Paris, and Zoe's purse is stolen. She doesn't have a phone, and she just realises there's absolutely no way to find her husband. They've been separated, and she has no way to contact him. Zoe just starts wandering the streets of Paris completely by herself. I think it takes her pretty much the whole day to actually finally go, oh, actually, maybe I do need to borrow somebody's phone or go to the police station and say, this is what happened to me and can I please call my husband? Because she has no idea where they're staying. Edward had all the information about the name of the hotel and where they're staying, and so Zoe's in a bit of a situation where she's just like, I have no way of contacting him at this point because she can't find any telephones anywhere. It eventually comes to the point when she actually just borrows somebody's phone. On the other side of it, Edward thinks that she's gone home and has decided that this just isn't worth it, because after they get separated and Edward has no idea where his wife has gone, he calls first a friend of hers who says that she hasn't heard from Zoe in over a year, and he's like, oh, how did I not know that she wasn't with her friend and what she'd been doing for the past year? And then he calls her parents who live round the corner from their house and says, look, we got separated, I think she might have gone home, can you just check the house and see if anybody's there? And when the parents go around the corner to see the house, lights are on, music is blaring, they assume that Zoe has gone home. So then Edward goes through the rest of the book thinking, she's gone home, this feels like the death of our relationship. He's looking at his wedding ring and thinking that the inscription in regards to happy endings is just a load of bull at this point. And he actually loses his ring while he's in Paris. And it's just one of those things where they keep missing each other. And so, as I said, it's will they or won't they? Like, will this relationship get fixed? Will they find each other while they're in Paris? At some point, one of them's going to have to go home. But at the same time, Edward is the one with everything. He's got the money, he's got the passports, he's got all the details of the hotel. Zoe doesn't have a phone, she has no money. There's a point when she gets in a taxi and she realises she has no money, and she manages to talk her way out of paying this fee. And yeah, it's beautifully written. It's such a heartwarming, heartbreaking story. You really, really feel for the characters and what they're going through. It's just so sad, really, when you go through it all. Looking at that relationship and how it develops and what happened and the compromises they made for each other in regards to their marriage, and the fact that by the time that after the breakup, when they realise they can't live without each other, and Zoe goes and actually proposes to him, and then he goes off and finds the ring and comes back, and then they go and buy a house. I read this very quickly. It was probably like a day and a half, I think it took me to read this book. It was hard to read at times, but it's just seeing that relationship and how the death of their child affects their relationship, and the different journeys that they're going on, and the different stories they're telling each other and themselves. And it kind of reminds me of a book I've read before, not exactly the same storyline, but it was a Colleen Hoover book which involves a relationship between a couple and their fertility issues. Oh, what was that book called? All Your Perfects. All Your Perfects was that book. So it looks at the timeline of a full relationship and how their fertility issues affect their relationship, and that will they, won't they. Obviously it's not exactly the same situation. In the other book, they come to the point where they just realise they cannot have children, whereas in this book it's a case of they do have a child, but then they cannot get pregnant again after that, and it's just all those questions and wondering if anybody's going to get the answers. But yeah, it's truly beautiful and heartwarming and heartbreaking, and yeah, your heart is just left in pieces by the end of the book. Their love story going through, you get so pulled into it, and then when you just see where they are in the present day and the conversations they're having with themselves while they're in Paris, away from each other, with no way to contact each other. Edward thinks she's gone home, and that's the reason why she's not answering her phone. And then Zoe just, the times when she is able to borrow her phone, or she calls from the police station, Edward sees these numbers that he doesn't recognise, and he's just like, I won't answer these phone calls because I don't know who it is. And when he does actually get a message from Zoe, going, "Hi, it's Zoe," and she tries to go into what happened, as soon as he hears her voice, he hangs up. At that point, he thinks she's gone home because her parents have confirmed there's somebody in the house blaring music. And it's all just, yeah, heartbreaking and heartwarming, and by the end of the book, your heart is just in shatters. You just got those little twists and turns throughout the book as you try to just figure out where they are in that relationship, will they meet up, and the fact that you keep hearing in both of their chapters, because it's done from each point of view while they're in Paris, and you're just thinking, oh, but she's like stumbled upon somewhere where he was, and he stumbled upon someone where she was, and they just keep missing each other. The way they get together is so cute in regards to like her doing lots of knitting, and he catches her just on a bench making some socks, and he's just there going, I want to take you out and I want to wear those socks, those bright pink socks that you're knitting right now, I want to wear those on our date. It's a beautiful book that will have your heart in shatters by the end of it, just because of the nature of the storyline. But yeah, if you feel like you need a good cry, I feel like this is a really good book for that. Because there were points when water was falling out of my eyes in this book. It did get to me, and I think it does have to do with the fact that I do have a personal connection with that storyline of the death of a child. And yeah, it's sad, it's beautiful, and you just are really rooting for Zoe and Edward. And there are times when you just want to hit Edward on the head with a stick or something and just say, just get a grip. Like, she went through this as well. The same to Zoe, really, because she's gone into herself in regards to her role in the death of their son, Milo. And yeah, I think it's just that moment, that's the catalyst. That moment when Milo died and they just went and just retreated inside themselves, and it's almost like grief becomes a bit of a competition, because Edward is there going, why has she not gotten over this? And Zoe's looking at Edward thinking, how has he moved on so quickly? And they're just on different levels when it comes to their grief, and yeah, it's just, it's sad. That's it. If you need a good cry, this is a really good book to get your head into and just go into that book and just feel the emotions going through it. Yeah, beautifully written. Anyway, Who We Were Before, Leah Mercer. Here you go. So, thank you for watching. If you like my videos, don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. I have seen that over 60% of you are not actually subscribed. I'm sure that's loads of my family and friends that don't have accounts though, and they're just watching. But please, if you like watching my videos, and you do watch all of them, just subscribe. It helps me out a little bit. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time with another video. Stay safe, everybody.